breaking ball and a call. Strike three. Third strikeout for Zach.
He's going to just watch it go. A grand slam for Bryson Stott.
And there's a high fly ball. Deep right field. Harper watches it fly.
From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Phight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, the Phillies do win a series against the Boston Red Sox, but it certainly doesn't feel like it after Wednesday night's disastrous 9-8 loss in 11 innings at Citizens Bank Park, a game they had well in hand early, but another weird start from Jesus Luzardo blows up in everyone's faces, and there was some comedy all around from JT Realmuto, Rob Thompson, and we're going to get into all of that here on this edition of the podcast. We will also talk a little bit about Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper hitting some milestones in the game on Wednesday night. And I'll get into some of the latest trade deadline rumors that are out there that have come down over the last couple of days. We'll do all that coming up here on this edition of Hittin Season. Let's jump right into it, though. And this series with the Red Sox, again, it will go down as a series victory. But as is so often the case, our feeling, and really the feeling among the players, so often is determined by what happens in the final game of a series. It's that momentum thing. It's that it almost overshadows what happened in the first two games of the series, which were very positive for a Phillies team that had lost their last three series before the game on Wednesday night. And so that's why the loss on Wednesday night stings so much. It's an off day on Thursday, so you got to ruminate on this now for 48 hours before you get a chance to get back out there. You got to travel to New York to take on a Yankees team that there's only 2 games difference between the Phillies and the Yankees. Phillies have a 2 games better than the Yankees right now. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough series. And you wanted to really finish off the sweep, especially last night, getting off to a 5-0 lead through the first 4 innings. The power does seem to be returning to the lineup a little bit, thanks mostly to Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. But the Phillies hit 5 home runs in the game on Wednesday night, and they still lost. It was kind of a historic loss, in fact. Schwarber, Harper, Nick Castellanos, Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto all hitting home runs in this game. It is the Phillies' first loss in a game in which they homered 5 or more times since June 10th of 2019. And when this team has been struggling to put together stacking wins. They have not won 3 games in a row since June 18th through the 20th. It has been more than a month since the Phillies have won 3 in a row. The Red Sox, by the way, are the first team in Major League history to strike out 15 or more times, which they did on Wednesday night, give up 5 or more home runs, which they did on Wednesday night, face at least a 5-run deficit, which the Red Sox did Wednesday night, and still win the game. And there's lots of blame to go around for what happened on Wednesday night, blowing a 5-0 fourth inning lead. You can blame JT Realmuto for losing that pop-up in the sky, and for Bryce Harper for not being more aggressive and going after it. Frankly, Jesus Luzardo appeared to see it, but kind of assumed that JT Realmuto was going to find it in the sky. That's one of those plays where I'm not down on the field level. I can't hear what's happening, but that's a communication issue. JT Realmuto should have said right away, I don't see it, and made it clear that someone else needed to step into the breach because that ball was up there high enough and long enough for someone else to come in and take over. Frankly, it probably should have been Jesus Luzardo, but I understand pitchers have been conditioned to stay away from the ball so that they don't accidentally crash into an infielder when they're trying to catch one. But in that case, a pop-up that would have ended the inning with no runs being scored ends up dropping, and the Red Sox tack on 6 runs in the 5th inning, thanks to 2 bases-loaded walks from Jesus Luzardo, and then, of course, the grand slam that gave the Red Sox the 6-5 lead. And then after that, it was a seesaw affair going back and forth. You did have a JT Realmuto hero moment in the 8th inning. He made up for his, and I don't want to call it a mistake because he didn't make a mistake. You can't help it if you don't see the ball in the sky. And for those of you who have ever played baseball, even on the little league level, you have been in a situation where a ball goes up in the air And especially in that twilight sky when the sky is just starting to turn from its normal blue color and get darker, you can't see the ball sometimes. And if there's lights, you just lose it. And it's hard to find it again. So it wasn't a mistake by JT Realmuto. It was a streak of bad luck there. And that's why Jesus Luzardo has got to pitch out of that situation. But you can blame JT Realmuto a little bit for that if you want. You can blame Rob Thompson. This was not Rob Thompson's strongest game. And as you know, I'm a Rob Thompson guy. I think he is a good major league manager. Everybody's like, we need a Dallas Green or a Larry Bow. Stop. That's not, there are no more of those managers anymore, guys. That's not how the big leagues, that's not how baseball works anymore. Those types of guys are not managers anymore. It's guys like Rob Thompson. Okay? That's how the game is right now, for better or worse, love it or hate it. That's what it is. But he waited too long to get Jordan Romano up and throwing in the bullpen. Jesus Luzardo, after walking in the first run, that should have been it. That should have been it. But even if you pull him after the second run is walked in, that would have at least been defensible, because you really didn't, based on how great he was pitching in the first 4 innings, you couldn't see that coming. So, okay, you walk in the second run, now you go get him. But Rob Thompson admitted after the game he waited too long to get Jordan Romano up. Romano wasn't ready. Luzardo gives up the grand slam, and now you put in Jordan Romano, but the damage has already been done. So that was a mistake. And then you look at some of the moves he made late in the game. After Kyle Schwarber hits the game-tying RBI single in the 10th, he pulls Schwarber for Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson, who is not a good base stealer, tries to steal second base and is thrown out by 10 feet at second base. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good. It was pretty clear what was going to happen there with Weston Wilson running for Kyle Schwarber. Now, you didn't end up needing Kyle Schwarber's bat again in this game, and that's one of the reasons why he pulled Kyle Schwarber, was simply he knew that no matter what happened, Schwarber was probably, his turn in the order was probably not going to come around again. The odds are very, very small. Extra inning games don't go to the 12th and 13th innings anymore. They never do. It is extremely rare. There's maybe like 9 or 10 games a season across the entire league that go that late anymore. So if that, I could look them up, but I don't think they really happen all that much anymore. So the main story we're going to be talking about on Thursday, it's of course going to be centered around Jesus Luzardo. And it's concerning what we're seeing from him. After blitzing through the league in his first 11 starts, where pitching from the stretch was no problem, all of a sudden, he has fallen apart when pitching from the stretch. Remember his first 11 starts, a 2.15 ERA on the season. And then in his next 2 starts, he allowed 20 runs. And that's when we started to get the whispers, we think he's tipping his pitches from the stretch. So he changed his delivery from the stretch. He used a bigger glove. He tried to hide the ball better from the stretch. But that messed him up. It seems pretty clear to me. He made significant mechanical changes pitching from the stretch, and it has negatively affected his performance. He has a 4.79 ERA over his last 9 starts. But listen to these, because he's alternated great starts and terrible starts along the way here. Obviously, Wednesday night against Boston, it was looking great. He had a no-hitter going into the 5th inning. He only gave up 2 hits on the game, but 5 walks. 7 strikeouts, but 5 walks, including the grand slam. In the game against the Angels, his last start, he only went 4 2/3 innings, gave up 7 hits, 4 runs, 2 of them home runs, another 7 strikeouts. Then in San Francisco, he was brilliant. 7 innings of shutout ball, gave up only 3 hits, struck out 7 and walked 1. So a brilliant start. The start before that against the Reds at home, really his last 3 starts at home have all been disasters. 2 innings against the Reds in which he gave up 6 runs, 5 of them earned on 6 hits and 3 walks with only 4 strikeouts. But the start before that in Atlanta, better. 5 innings, 2 runs allowed, 7 hits, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. The start before that against the Mets at home, 6 2/3 innings of shutout ball, gave up only 3 hits, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. The game before that in Miami, Not very good. 5 innings, 4 runs allowed, 6 hits, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. But the game before that, at home against the Cubs, he looked terrific. 6 innings of 1-run ball, gave up just 5 hits, struck out 10, and walked no one. And then the 2 starts before that are the 2 disasters. 2 1/3 innings in Toronto when he gave up 8 runs. And then against the Brewers, where he had to wear it that day for whatever reason. 3 1/3 innings, 12 runs allowed, 15 base runners in 3 1/3 innings for Jesus Luzardo. I mean, he has been the most Jekyll and Hyde pitcher we have seen in a Phillies uniform in quite some time. And all of these problems stem from pitching from the stretch, as you all know by now. But here are some of the numbers. Matt Gelb noted this in his article that came out on Thursday. Since June 11th, opponents have hit 192 against Jesus Luzardo when no one is on base. When he's pitching from the windup, a 192 batting average allowed, a 252 on-base percentage, and only a 253 slugging percentage. He has struck out 37 batters and walked 8 when no one is on base. So pitching from the windup since June 11th, fantastic. And in the starts where he has pitched well since then, he hasn't allowed many base runners. And so he's pitching out of the stretch most of the time. But with runners on base, pitching from the stretch, opponents are hitting .339 against him since June 11th. That's with a .443 on-base percentage. A .443 on-base percentage. Nearly half of all hitters are getting on base against him when he's pitching from the stretch. A .576 slugging percentage allowed. Only 16 strikeouts and 11 walks. And Matt Gelb noted that he went back to his old mechanics on Wednesday night, because he's been trying all these different things. There's a concern that this is messing him up. So he goes back to his old mechanics, and that doesn't work. To his credit, Luzardo is facing the music, says he's working day and night to fix his issues. He says teams are hitting him hard when he's pitching out of the stretch, and that it's not on Realmuto losing the foul ball pop-up. Other Phillies, he said he lost it in the sky. Other Phillies lost it as well. Bryce Harper couldn't see the ball either, so he did absolve Bryce Harper, and he absolved himself. You can't see the ball, you can't see the ball. Just nothing you do about that. Rob Thompson said that Jesus Luzardo lost his concentration after that. And I don't know that it was because of the dropped ball, but I think when pitching from the stretch, Luzardo is so worried about tipping his pitches, about teams knowing what's coming, that it crawls inside of his head, wiggles around in there, and then vomits itself out, because his command is abhorrent. He can't throw quality strikes from the stretch. That's the problem. The only time he throws a strike is if it's right over the middle of the plate. And that's what we saw in the 5th inning on Wednesday night. He does not have the ability to throw quality strikes from the stretch right now. And until Luzardo figures this out, there's real doubt as to whether or not he's going to be able to stay in the starting rotation for the rest of the season. The thing about the pitch tipping, too, is you're dealing with a Red Sox team that has become notorious around the league. And Justin talked about the Yankees being notorious for this. And so they're going to face this in New York this weekend. Gelb noted a conspicuous mound meeting, called it a conspicuous mound meeting during the top of the 10th inning. Max Lazar is in the game. He threw a curveball on the first pitch to Trevor Story. That Story swung through. But the way Story swung at that pitch indicated that he might have known that was coming. And remember, in the 10th inning, you start with the zombie runner on second base. So Lazar is pitching from the stretch, but there's a runner on second who the hitter can see if the runner wants to give him an indication of what pitch might be coming. Now, we remember the Astros sign stealing scandal and remember it as cheating. And it was. The way that teams, if you can pick up a sign or you can see that a pitcher is tipping his pitches and relay that information from player to player on the field, totally legal. Totally within the rules of baseball. Totally within bounds. It's smart. I have no problem with the Red Sox trying to decipher if pitchers are tipping their pitches, trying to give hitters location based on where the catcher is sitting. In fact, they balked Bryce Harper to third base in the 11th inning because they didn't want him relaying location information to the hitters in the bottom of the 11th inning. Now, I don't think the Phillies do this as much as the Red Sox seem to do. But pitching coach Caleb Cottom came out for a mound visit after Story swung through that curveball because the Phillies, I think, were cognizant of the fact that the Red Sox had something on him. Didn't matter. It didn't matter because later in that at bat, his Story doubled home a run 2 pitchers later. But the Phillies were worried that either Jarren Duran or first base coach Jose Flores could see Luzardo's grip in his glove. Flores was a former Phillies coach, and he apparently has become known throughout the league as a sign stealer. So is the manager, Alex Cora. So this is something that the Red Sox do a lot of. So perhaps this was inevitable that Jesus Luzardo would face this issue because this has been a problem for him all season long. Now, here's what I will say about Luzardo. And the Phillies are 3-8 in Luzardo's last 11 starts. Here in July, the Phillies have given Luzardo leads of 3-0, 4-1, and 5-0, and he has lost all 3 starts. The Phillies are 3-8 in Luzardo's last 11 starts. Now, here's the good news. I know that Luzardo hasn't been able to figure out this mechanical issue pitching from the stretch, and it's a big problem. But he's healthy. His stuff has not diminished. The fastball is electric. When pitching from the windup, he is as dominant as any left-handed starter in the National League right now. That's a good sign. He can locate all his pitches. He can throw everything for strikes. His sweeper is nearly impossible to hit, especially for left-handers. If and when he figures out his issues from the stretch, we're going to see the pitcher that we saw in the first 11 starts of the season who put up a 2.15 ERA. His stuff is not, he's healthy. He's throwing great. It's all there. Mechanical issues can be fixed. They haven't solved it yet, and that's a problem. And there's no guarantee that it will get solved this year. You're hoping that he solves it, but there's no guarantee that that happens. And so that's the worry. And if that's the case, if it doesn't get fixed, then you're going to see Jesus Luzardo move to the bullpen as soon as Aaron Nola is ready and as soon as they feel ready to bring up Mick Abel and or Andrew Painter, depending on who gets traded at the trade deadline, if any of those guys get moved at the trade deadline. Luzardo is now the number 1 candidate from the starting rotation, and he probably has been for the last few weeks, to move to the bullpen. And a lot of it is because they can't use him as a starter if he can't get through a lineup a second and a third time, given his struggles from the stretch. Now, as a relief pitcher, he's going to have to pitch from the stretch there too. So this problem doesn't go away just because you move him to the bullpen. But because it's a mechanical issue, and the Phillies, I think, have good pitching coaches. Caleb Cottom, I think, is a good pitching coach. You know that they're working through it. And it's going to take is for something to click. And then it's going to take hold. But until that happens, Luzardo's success will only come if he doesn't give up many base runners. And when he does give up base runners, that he's able to keep them off second base. Because that seems to be the major problem right now. Is guys get to second and they can see everything he's doing. Or he's trying to hide what he's doing and it's messing him up mechanically. But I'll tell you who really needs Jesus Luzardo to work out, and that's Dave Dombrowski. Because Dave Dombrowski last offseason decided that he was going to go bargain bin shopping for just about everything. They did not want to give up prospects. They did not want to go too far over the luxury tax. They did not want to go after the top of the market in free agency. And truth be told, most of the major free agents outside of Juan Soto have not panned out for their new respective teams, especially in the outfield. I will grant that. But Max Kepler has been a complete and utter disaster. He should not be on the... I've been calling for him to be DFA'd a month ago. I'm glad to see people are finally coming around to what I was saying a month ago, because I got a lot of pushback on that on social media. You can't DFA him. Look at all you're paying him. Of course you can. Of course you can. And that's coming. He's going to get DFA'd. A disaster of a signing that I'm going to brag about being right about in the moment. It never made sense. Jordan Romano was hope as a tactic. hoping that he would return to form after an injury-plagued and brutal season with the Blue Jays a year ago. A reasonable thought, but the fact that he was your only bullpen addition after losing two guys in the offseason was malpractice. And we all knew it in real time. We didn't know Jose Alvarado was going to be lost for 80 games due to a suspension, but we knew it wasn't enough in real time. Joe Ross, no one liked that signing. The one signing we liked, the one move we liked, was the trade for Jesus Luzardo. And through the first 11 starts of the season, he was right there with Garrett Crochet as best left-hander in baseball. And I was saying to everybody, Phillies made the better move. They gave up less to get Jesus Luzardo and are getting just as much production from him as the Red Sox are getting from Garrett Crochet, and they had to give up a bunch of top prospects to the White Sox for him. And then they had to sign him to a big money deal. Phillies didn't have to do any of that with Jesus Luzardo. And that's why I felt like, hey, Dave Dombrowski won that deal, won that trade-off. But if Jesus Luzardo doesn't figure it out, the last offseason was already a disaster, and the last trade deadline was already a disaster. Dave Dombrowski has had a terrible last 12 months. Nothing has worked. And now it feels like the only thing that was working, Jesus Luzardo, is now no longer working. So they need Luzardo to start throwing better and being productive in order to give Dave Dombrowski some kind of toehold in his offseason moves last winter. But it's not looking good. It is not looking good right now. I do think Luzardo can figure this out. Again, the stuff is there. It's a mechanical issue from the stretch. This seems to me like something that can be fixed. We just have to wait and see if they can fix it. All right, a couple of notes from the game last night, specifically about Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. Harper hits his 350th home run, another milestone home run from Bryce Harper that the Phillies wasted. You remember when he hit 300? It was in a series, I think it was against the Giants back in 2023, where he tied the game, I think it was in the bottom of the ninth, in a dramatic home run for his 300th. And then the Phillies the bullpen blew it, gave the game to, I think it was the Giants, and the Phillies lost that game. They did the same exact thing on Wednesday night as Harper hit his 350th of his career. There are 8 active players that have 350 career home runs right now. Actually, so now Harper became the 8th. He's the youngest of the 8 active players to reach 350 career home runs, which tells you maybe he's on that glide path to 500. Youngest of the 8 active players to reach 350 career home runs. That includes Giancarlo Stanton, Mike Trout, Paul Goldschmidt, Manny Machado, Freddie Freeman, Nolan Arenado, and Aaron Judge. Some great company there for Bryce Harper. And Kyle Schwarber, with his first inning 2-run bomb, that's number 34 for him on the season. 34 home runs are the third most through 102 games in Phillies franchise history, behind only Ryan Howard in 2006 when he had 58, and Mike Schmidt in 1979. Both had 36 home runs that season at this point through 102 games. 36 home runs through 102 games. They ended up hitting a lot more than that as the season went along. All right, let's talk quickly about the game on Tuesday. And in the games on Monday and Tuesday, dominant pitching performances from Zach Wheeler and Cristopher Sanchez, even with everything we saw on Wednesday night. What we saw on Monday and Tuesday are the purest examples, the clearest examples of why the Phillies can win a World Series. That is Zach Wheeler and Cristopher Sanchez, 2 aces that you can throw out there, one right-handed, one left-handed, in the first 2 games of every playoff series. Game 1 and 2, game 6 and 7. They're almost a certainty to win a 3-game series in a wild card round, given those 2 guys, and certainly huge favorites to win a 5-game series, given those 2 guys. It gives the Phillies a leg up in the postseason over any team in baseball. No team in baseball has a 1-2 as dominant as Wheeler and Sanchez. Now, talk to me about the Brewers in late September if Brandon Woodruff and Jacob Misiorowski are still throwing the way they're throwing right now. But for right now, it's Wheeler and Sanchez. No one can match what the Phillies can do in the playoffs with those 2 guys starting a postseason series. And for Cristopher Sanchez, in particular, welcome officially to the Cy Young conversation, Cristopher Sanchez. I wrote an article for The Good Phight this week diving into his Cy Young contender status and where we are. But Scott Lauber had a very good set of statistics, an eye-opening set of statistics regarding Sanchez. They called him up, the Phillies did, for a spot start in June of 2023 in Oakland. Okay, so since June of 2023 in Oakland, here is where he ranks among all starting pitchers in baseball. Second in ground ball rate. Fourth in ERA, 3.03 ERA since June of 23. 2 years, folks. Fourth in Fangraphs wins above replacement. Fifth in fielding independent pitching, and eighth in total innings pitched. The guy has become not just a good left-handed starting pitcher. He has developed and morphed into an ace starter, a guy who could start game one of a playoff series. A complete game for him on Tuesday night, 1 run allowed, 12 strikeouts, finished with 12 strikeouts in the game, 4 hits allowed, 1 earned run. Love the fire from him, too, on Tuesday night after he struck a guy out in the 8th inning, pounding his glove with his hand, screaming into the air in delight. That kind of emotion, you normally see that in a pennant race. We're not quite in the pennant race yet. It's mid-July. But Sanchez is out there, man, wanting it. And Rob Thompson sent him back out there for the complete game in the 9th inning. He hadn't reached 100 pitches yet and just breezed through a 1-2-3 9th inning against the heart of a Red Sox lineup that is 5th in the majors in runs scored and OPS, by the way. But this isn't a new trend. In 20 starts this year, Sanchez has allowed more than 3 runs in a game one time. Just one game this year, Sanchez has allowed more than 3 runs. And in that outing, his second start of the season, he gave up 4. He's allowed 2 runs or fewer in each of his last 10 starts. That's a 1.67 ERA. He struck out 69 batters and walked 12 in 70 innings during that stretch, his last 10 starts. In his last 7 starts, his ERA is 1.40. He is one of 3 major league pitchers to have a 7-start span with an undefeated record, an ERA under 1.50, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, and fewer than 5 walks with no more than 1 home run allowed. That's a lot of criteria, but it paints a picture of overall dominance. The other 2 guys, Greg Maddux and Clayton Kershaw, 2 Hall of Famers. Give Matt Klentak a little bit of credit, too, for pulling off the Curtis Mead for Cristopher Sanchez trade, right? An ace and a Cy Young contender here, guys. By the end of the season, it's entirely possible he could win the thing. Check out my article on The Good Phight, where I kind of broke down a lot of the numbers between him, Crochet, Paul Skeens, Zach Wheeler, and Tariq Skubal. Skubal's the best pitcher in baseball. There's really no close second at the moment. But if you're looking in the National League, it's a horse race between Skeens, Wheeler, and Sanchez right now. Skeens might have the slight edge over Wheeler at the moment, but it's pretty close. But you just look at Sanchez's numbers compared to Wheeler's. He trails Wheeler in ERA by 1/100th of a run, 2.40 to 2.39. He trails in FWAR, 3.9 to 3.6, but leads in BWAR, 5.2 to 5.1. And really, it's Cristopher Sanchez that has allowed the Phillies to get past Aaron Nola's absence without really missing him all that much. Somebody needed to elevate their game and slide in as the team's number 2 starter. Well, Sanchez has done more than that. He's become the co-ace of the team. He's taken Aaron Nola's place as the co-ace of the team. And it's all about the changeup. Second best changeup in baseball in terms of run value over at Baseball Savant. It's one of the 5 best pitches in the sport in terms of run value. Only Tariq Skubal has a superior changeup based on run value. But if you look at batting average allowed on changeups, Sanchez is superior. 136 batting average allowed on his changeup. A 169 slugging percentage on the changeup. Skubal's allowed a 157 average and a 203 slugging percentage. Skubal has allowed a 27% hard hit rate on the changeup. Sanchez, just under 23%. And at JHeyKid on X tweeted this out after the game on Tuesday night. Cristopher Sanchez's changeup against the Red Sox, 0 for 13. 9 strikeouts, 14 total swings and misses. Hitters are now 4 for 42 with 22 strikeouts against his changeup over his last 3 starts. On the season, 24 for 177 with 85 strikeouts on the season. His 85 strikeouts with the changeup are the most in Major League Baseball this season. And what the changeup really does is help him to dominate right-handed hitters. And you feel when he gets in trouble, he can dial up that changeup whenever he wants to get a strikeout. He's done that so much over the last few starts. He doesn't get in trouble that often, but every once in a while, his command will leave him for a hitter or two, and he'll get a couple guys on base, and there'll be a right-handed hitter coming up, and you just kind of know he's got that changeup in his back pocket. We haven't seen a changeup like this since Cole Hamels in his heyday. A guy who could get right-handers out with this kind of ease. Sanchez has held left-handers to a 165, 255, 176 slash line. That's pretty understandable given his fastball and how well he does locating pitches. You would expect Sanchez to dominate left-handers. But right-handers are hitting just 238 against him, with a 290 on-base percentage and a 346 slugging percentage. He's got a better strikeout rate against right-handers than left-handers, and is walking fewer right-handers than lefties. This is what allows him to see a lineup a third time through the order. And it's what allows Thompson the flexibility to send him back out there in the 7th and the 8th innings, and in the case on Tuesday night, the 9th inning. Cristopher Sanchez is the best left-handed pitcher in the National League. This is not debatable. He's been great for 2 years now and getting better with each successive start. Now, in the next few weeks, Nola will rejoin the rotation. No one knows what Aaron Nola is going to bring to the table, but it is remarkable that the team has not missed Aaron Nola all that much. And that is because Cristopher Sanchez has emerged as the best left-handed starting pitcher in the National League. He has joined Zach Wheeler atop the rotation as a true ace. It's remarkable the team hasn't really missed a beat, that the starting rotation remains the best in baseball even without Aaron Nola in it. Sanchez has stepped into the role that Nola has held as Wheeler's running buddy for the last 5 years, and it is just a continuation of the progress that Cristopher Sanchez has made from when he first joined the Phillies as a guy who was a hard-throwing reliever who didn't know where the ball was going, to a guy who reduced his velocity, worked on his mechanics, figured out how to pitch with command, started adding his velocity back in while maintaining his command of all his pitches, and now has developed a changeup, an out pitch, a swing and miss pitch that gets better with each and every year, each and every month, each and every start, to the point where he is a true bona fide ace in Major League Baseball. It is unlikely Sanchez will earn more Cy Young votes than Zach Wheeler or Paul Skeens. He will likely finish, if this continues, in 3rd place in the National League Cy Young voting. But when Matt Klentak made the deal for Cristopher Sanchez and gave up Curtis Mead, there is no way anyone could have expected this young man to do what he is doing. Hat tip to you, Cristopher Sanchez, Cy Young candidate. And boy, have the Phillies needed you. What a tremendous season from him so far, and it keeps on rolling. All right, a couple other quick things on the Phils, and then I want to get to some trade deadline stuff. Was listening to Jason Stark on 97.5 The Fanatic, talking a little bit about Kyle Schwarber and whether or not there should be any worry that he will be back next season. And Jason Stark said some things that put my mind at ease a little bit on this. I've always believed Schwarber will be back. Even though he didn't sign the extension, I have no doubt Kyle Schwarber will be back in a Phillies uniform, and Jason Stark said the same thing. You hear Kyle Schwarber talk about the All-Star game next year in Philadelphia and wanting to be a part of it, and you just get the sense that he knows and the Phillies know this is his home. So the number that Jason Stark threw out there is a number that I've mentioned, and I think it's an obvious number. I'm not a genius for coming up with this number. It's another 4-year contract for more than he made in his last contract, $25 million a year. You get Kyle Schwarber for 4 years and $100 million. That's the number. You do it. And you don't think twice. And you look back on these last 4 years, and like Cristopher Sanchez, you see a player who's getting better every year. He has been so consistent here in 2025 with a good batting average, steady power, hits in big spots. They have to get. Now, as Jason Stark mentioned on the show, he's going to hit free agency. He wants to test the market. He wants to see what he's worth. And I know Schwarber has mentioned going back home and playing in his hometown of Cincinnati if the Reds are interested. That would be the one team that I think would worry me. But Alex Cora this week talked about Kyle Schwarber. Even opposing managers understand and believe that Schwarber will be back in Philadelphia. Alex Cora said, and because he was Kyle Schwarber's coach manager for a brief period of time when Schwarber was with the Red Sox, and just talked about the impression that Schwarber left even in the short time that he was there. And it was a very short time in Boston. But talked about not only has he become one of the game's best hitters at the plate, but you look at everything that he brings to the team in the clubhouse. He's an invaluable member of whatever team that he's on. And Alex Cora essentially said, he belongs in Philadelphia. This place is perfect for him. The city is perfect for him. The team is perfect for him. The fan base is perfect for him. The situation is perfect for him. Obviously, his teammates are desperate to see him stay in Philadelphia. But even opposing managers know this is Kyle Schwarber's home. So I don't see Kyle Schwarber going anywhere when he becomes a free agent. And by becoming a free agent, he's going to earn himself some money. It's a good thing for Schwarber that he did not sign the contract extension in the spring, because he has made himself money and years on his next contract by playing this season out. So good for Schwarber. You pray for health and just that he keeps it up. And as a fan, and frankly, I think as John Middleton, you are willing to pay 4 years, $100 million for Kyle Schwarber without any question at all. All right, let's get to the trade deadline latest. Here's just I'm going to run down some of the latest rumors that have come down the pike over the last couple of days. Jason Stark, again, on 95 The Fanatic with Mike Missinelli, said that Dombrowski wants to use his biggest trade chips to trade for a big-time power bullpen arm controllable beyond this year. So thinking Duran, Felix Bautista. Jason Stark throws cold water on Mason Miller or Emmanuel Clase. Does not think the A's or the Guardians are going to move either one of those players. They're listening to offers, but the asking price is reportedly so high right now that it doesn't make sense for anyone to trade for those guys. Jason Stark said if Dombrowski gets one, if he goes after an offensive player, it's likely a right-handed platoon bat that Jason Stark said, quote, falls into his lap. I don't know what that means. That a right-handed platoon bat would fall into his lap. What that tells me is that the Phillies are not looking to give anything up of consequence for a right-handed platoon bat. And if that's what you're getting is a right-handed platoon bat, I could get that. But if you're telling me Taylor Ward or Joe Adell might be available at the trade deadline, I'm making a move like that, especially for Joe Adell. Joe Adell has kind of become my guy because I don't think Eugenio Suarez is in the cards. I'm going to get to a Eugenio Suarez rumor in just a second, but it sure sounds like the Mariners or the Yankees are the leading candidates to land Eugenio Suarez, and that it's not going to be the Phillies. Jeff Passan of ESPN did a write-up on Wednesday. The Phillies have quietly built up one of the best farm systems in baseball. And President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski's history of trading prospects for impact talent is unmatched. It hasn't been unmatched in his 4 years in Philadelphia. I went through an article in The Good Phight looking at all of his trades since coming to Philadelphia. He has not been the big trade prospects for star players type guy. And really in his career, that part of his tenures have been overblown. So I wouldn't say that his history of trading prospects for impact talent is unmatched. I think that's a lot of hyperbole that has followed around Dave Dombrowski throughout his career. And certainly we have not seen that manifest itself in Philadelphia. But Jeff Passan writes, still, with the Phillies entering a transition phase over the next few years, they aren't likely to sacrifice all of their farm system depth. That complicates their tack at this deadline because they are among the few teams with the need and capacity to acquire a pitcher of Emmanuel Clase's talent. Same goes for Cade Smith, another Guardian, and the Twins' 2 frontline relievers, John Duran and Griffin Jax. Jeff Passan also said that getting David Robertson for $6 million certainly helps matters and serves as insurance against objectionable demands on high-end relief pitchers. And that is, I think, what Dave Dombrowski is seeing right now. And yet, adding Robertson plus a high-octane relief arm alongside Orion Kerkering and Matt Strahm gives the Phillies a representative back end. He also said if they can also add a right-handed hitting outfielder with power, Adolis Garcia is in the mix, and Luis Robert Jr. would play too, it will be a successful deadline for a team whose starting pitching is good enough to carry it deep into October. We went through a list of players on the last podcast. Justin and I, we did a draft of all of the players who will probably be available here at the trade deadline. Go back to the last episode, episode 988, if you want to hear. In the last half hour of the podcast, we went through 20 names. We each took turns picking players that we thought would be the best fit for the Phillies at the trade deadline. I highly encourage you to listen to it. I thought it was very informative. Adolis Garcia was not on our list. Luis Robert Jr. was on our list, but only because he won't cost anything. None of us are sure if he is any good anymore. I thought some interesting things on the Phillies show, which is a very good podcast. Todd Zalecki, Ruben Amaro, Jim Salisbury. Those guys are pretty dialed in. Some very interesting things that they had to say on their most recent episode this week. Ruben Amaro said was very skeptical in talking to people around the league that the Phillies are going to be willing to meet the asking price for these young, controllable relievers that we've been talking about. And that includes Cade Smith, Clase, Duran, Griffin Jax. The price tag on these guys is very high, and listening to Amaro, he is very skeptical that any of those guys are actually going to be available. So his thought is, if they can't get one of those high-end guys, the Phillies need to pivot. And I thought one of the interesting things that Jim Salisbury said on the podcast was, guys inside the clubhouse are talking about Eugenio Suarez, about what kind of an addition he would be to the lineup. And essentially, that the solution is just to put Kyle Schwarber in left field and make Suarez the everyday DH. Now, you could put Bryce Harper back in the outfield. He's a better athlete than Kyle Schwarber. That was his natural position. And, Harper is not falling apart at the seams. He's certainly capable of playing left field. Or you move Castellanos to left and put Bryce in right. You move Alec Boehm to first base when he comes back off the injured list and let Suarez play third base. But I thought it was interesting that in the clubhouse, Salisbury said they're talking about it enough that it's a name that we should at least have on the tip of our tongues. One of the other things I thought Amaro said that was interesting was that he talked to someone in the Phillies organization who is of the opinion that Aiden Miller may be more untouchable than Painter. And I think the reason for that could be, it seems as though the Phillies have far more pitching prospects and that there's more young pitching prospects out there than there are young offensive potential star prospects. Certainly in this organization, the dearth of position player prospects who are somewhat close to the majors is scant. You've got Aiden Miller and again, Justin Crawford, who I'm just not convinced is going to be anything more than a slightly better Johan Rojas from the left side of the plate. So we'll have to see, but I thought those were some interesting nuggets from the Phillies show podcast. Buster Olney mentioned a surprise name has emerged in the starting pitcher market. Dylan Cease, who will be eligible for free agency at year's end. He's, of course, one of the Padres' best starting pitchers. He said the perception of other teams is that the Padres are intent on making a push for the playoffs, which they should, and would use Cease to help fill other roster needs. So here you have a contender looking to move one of their best starting pitchers that's on an expiring contract in the hopes of firming up other spots on the roster. And I'm curious, could the Phillies do something similar with Ranger Suarez? Given how Suarez finished last season, how he faded down the stretch after a hot first half, and how, again, we'll see this weekend in New York. I think this will be a very telling start for Ranger Suarez against the Yankees in New York. If we see a similar outing like we saw in his first start back against the Red Sox, I'm sorry, no, not against the Red Sox, pardon me, against the Angels, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Would not be surprised at all if Ranger Suarez gets moved in a similar type deal. There are contenders looking for starting pitching. Could a team like the Red Sox move a young position player like a Jarren Duran in order to get a starting pitcher like Ranger Suarez who can help them win the wild card. Maybe. I mean, other players would have to be involved. It wouldn't be straight up 1-for-1. But maybe Ranger Suarez is used in that way. Now, Jesus Luzardo's struggles factor into the mix here. And maybe they trade Jesus Luzardo. I don't know what kind of value Jesus Luzardo has given his mechanical issues right now. It's probably not great. But it's probably not nothing either. I mean, the stuff, like we said, is all there. He's pitched great at times this year. He's got an extra year on his contract, but that means lots of players get moved with a year and a half left on their contracts. If the Phillies' true strength is the starting rotation, and they want to keep the younger guys, specifically Andrew Painter, maybe they move Jesus Luzardo. If it gets you a stud relief pitcher, would you rather have Jesus Luzardo moved to the bullpen, or would you use Luzardo or Ranger Suarez to get you a bona fide impact reliever right now? And I think Jesus Luzardo would get you more than that. Maybe Jesus Luzardo is one of those guys that gets you those young, controllable bullpen arms. I just thought it was interesting what the Padres are considering with Dylan Cease. The Phillies have a guy in Ranger Suarez who is in that same spot, and frankly is pitching better than Dylan Cease. Again, given Luzardo's struggles, that may not make a whole lot of sense, but wanted to just kind of throw that into the ether. If Dave Dombrowski wants to get creative, that's a way you get creative. It would just have to depend on what you get back. I mentioned Joe Adell earlier in the podcast. Listen to these numbers. Starting on May 6th, 67 games, has a 907 OPS, 19 home runs, tied for sixth most in baseball since May 6th, and his .563 slugging percentage is higher than any Phillies player, and that includes Kyle Schwarber. Another interesting name mentioned, Dane Myers. He plays center field for the Marlins. If you're looking for that right-handed platoon bat, he's 29 years old and just destroying left-handers. This year, hitting .324, .385, .493 with an .878 OPS, 2 homers, 13 RBIs, and 78 plate appearances with 6 doubles. He would be a platoon guy. That's another name to be on the lookout for. He's under team control for a lot more time and is making just over the league minimum. So from a price perspective, that would make sense. And then John Heyman of the New York Post reports that the Phillies and Padres are two of the many teams that have expressed interest in Stephen Kwan. Both contenders are known to be looking for a left field upgrade, of which Kwan would certainly be one. So, as of late Wednesday night, those are the latest rumors around the trade deadline concerning your Philadelphia Phillies. Of course, a lot more is going to be happening now as we are 10 days away from the trade deadline as we are recording this podcast, and Justin and Liz will give you the latest update on any other trade rumors that come down over the next 24 to 48 hours, and it'll certainly be a major topic on our next roundtable edition of the podcast as well. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. Want to encourage you all to check out our Hittin' Season YouTube page. Go to YouTube, type Hittin' Season in the search bar, and you will find us. Subscribe to the page, and the midweek podcast that I do, as well as the Roundtable podcast, the whole episodes will be posted there. So if you like to listen to podcasts on your smart TV or when you're driving around, whatever, you can get us on YouTube as well. I would encourage you not to watch YouTube as you're driving. Nevertheless, you can access the audio that way. And of course, if you get your podcasts the traditional way, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of the other podcast platforms, we're there. Subscribe, download, rate, and review. Tell your friends and family members about the Hittin' Season podcast, the best Phillies podcast in the world. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.